I have with me first this evening Ambassador John Bolton. He has been former National Security Advisor to President Trump in his first term. Now, of course, he's Trump's target. There have been raids on him. Trump doesn't like him anymore. Trump speaks badly of him. But then Trump speaks badly of a lot of people, doesn't he, Ambassador? My question to you is this. You must be watching this closely. The big news, India-USA trade deal, historic deal. I began by saying that I don't think Trump went away with a lot. What do you make of what he said?
I don't think tariffs are good for anybody as a matter of normal economic interchange. It was a mistake for Trump to launch the so-called Liberation Day tariffs. These are hidden taxes on American consumers. We do have problems in the trade world, mostly with China stealing intellectual property and the like. But it's mutually beneficial for the citizens of both countries not to have tariffs in the way. So anything that reduces tariffs, by and large, is a positive for all the countries involved. And I know that India has been celebrating going from 50% to 18%. I'll celebrate even more when we go to 0%.
What did you mean by 0%? Like?
Well, in other words, I don't see why there's any upside to having tariffs on Indian goods coming into the U.S. or U.S. goods going into India. In our states, and I think in your states too, there's not a tariff internally between North Carolina and South Carolina. For us, it would be crazy to do it. And I think people overall benefit from free trade.
No, 100% they do. My question was that when we saw Trump's statement yesterday, a lot of things are generic. He says that we will have zero tariffs, zero tariff barriers for our goods into America, but I don't see anything on the dotted line on that. He also says that India has promised to buy American, but that seems very generic. It does not seem anything specific there. He says India has promised to buy American. That's a generic promise, isn't it, Mr. Bolton? It's not on the dotted line. It's only a statement of intent.
Well, remember, what Trump says is what he wants the world to hear. And the details come later, and obviously the details here are significant. So I'm not buying that we understand fully what the deal is yet. But if anything comes that reduces the tariffs, that'll be good. If the reporting in the United States is that India agreed to buy more oil from the United States, I think that's great, of course. But also to buy more oil from Venezuela and in lieu of buying Russian oil. And all I can say on that part is good luck, because Venezuela's oil production is very, very low, and the odds of that production increasing materially, certainly in a way that could satisfy demand at the level India has, is years down the road.
So if the specifics are not clear, why does a person who wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, end up committing 18% from 50% for India without getting anything substantially significant in writing in return?
Well, he may or may not have gotten something in return. I mean, I'm certainly not arguing that he did. He frequently announces deals that don't exist. But I think his whole concept of tariffs is wrong. I think his idea that if a country has a trade surplus with another country, that's good, and a trade deficit with a different country, that's bad, is just wrong. He doesn't understand that the surplus and deficits are caused by millions of individual economic transactions. And so the idea that somehow we're better off with higher tariffs to begin with is wrong, and that we're making a concession by lowering the tariffs is wrong as well. People who ought to be happiest about the tariff rate coming down from 50% to 18% should be American consumers, because they and importers generally are the ones who pay the tariffs. The study done by the Kiel Institute of Germany on the effect of the Liberation Day tariffs for the past year is that the exporters pay about 4% of the tariffs, and importers and American consumers pay 96% of the tariffs. So reducing the American tariffs is a big tax cut for the American people, which I applaud.
Could it also be that India temporarily agrees to slow down purchasing Russian oil. By the way, I do not think, Ambassador, there's any possibility that India will reduce the purchase of Russian oil to zero. Again, that's a no commitment zone. That's a statement by Donald Trump on Truth Social. But there is no firm commitment that we will stop. But, just to get a deal done, because the war can't go on indefinitely, India could say, okay, we'll slow it down for a while and we'll open the tap again after the war ends. So it's not really a change of position, making me wonder why Trump is seeking a headline here. Is it the pressure of the India-EU trade deal that was beginning to bear on him?
No, I don't think so. But I think Indian consumers and producers, manufacturers are better off with this as well. That and in fact would be even better off if they lowered Indian tariffs. I think the incentive for India not to purchase Russian oil, even at the very low rates that are being paid, well below the global market price, is that Russia is increasingly becoming a subservient state to China, and the China-Russia axis that's been forming. This is not like the Sino-Soviet alliance of the Cold War. This time China's in charge. And the close relationships that countries have with Russia for oil or weapons or other products like that leave them in a vulnerable position. I think this applies to India as well, and vulnerable particularly vis-a-vis China. So dispersing the oil production or the oil purchases from Russia to other suppliers of oil makes sense for India on its own geopolitical terms.
You've been National Security Advisor with Trump in his first term. You know him well. You worked closely, very, very closely with him at the highest level. Now, he's been humming and hawing and being very, very aggressive vis-a-vis India, very pro-Pakistan. Is this a consistent position in your view? Does he have any long-term views on building a relationship with India? Or is it purely only transactional and whatever works for today rather than a long-term partnership?
No, it's all about Donald Trump today. It is all transactional. And this is very hard for people to understand, very hard for me to understand until I started working for him. He doesn't have a philosophy. He doesn't have a national security grand strategy. He doesn't even really do policy the way we understand those terms. And when he does deals internationally, he frequently doesn't know the assets that he's dealing with. He doesn't know what he's getting for the deals that he's making. So it's very dangerous for the United States and allows our adversaries to take advantage of us. I think it is the case he and Prime Minister Modi have a good personal relationship. I wish we could build more on that in dealing with the threat that China poses all along its Indo-Pacific periphery, because that's where the real issue is. Trade disputes between friends are often very, very difficult, but they involve economic stakes and you have to work them out. But to allow trade differences to obscure geostrategic common interest, I think, is a real problem. So one benefit, I hope, coming from this tariff reduction is we can now start talking more about how to cooperate against the common threat we face from China.
Ambassador John Bolton, I thank you very much for giving us your perspective of what happens with this trade deal and beyond, and its possible impact on India-America relations. Thank you very much, Ambassador Bolton.